Hey guys, it's Becky and today I'm going to be reviewing Heart of Iron by Ashley Poston. Heart of Iron is an Anastasia retelling, which I loved because I loved that film as a child. It follows Anna, who has been lost in space and is found by the ship captain with D09, a robot companion. But D09 is glitching and he is one of the last remaining illegal metals, as he is not part of the hive. Anna will stop at nothing in order to save him and to fix him, which means they have to find the coordinates for a lost ship. At the last moment, an Ironblood ends up getting the coordinates instead of Anna. This means that she must follow him to try and get them back. When everything goes wrong, her and the Ironblood must work together, and then they find lots of secrets on the ship. When the darkness from Anna's past comes back to find her, she must find a way to save herself, her family, and the kingdom. I didn't realise until about halfway through that this was an Anastasia retelling. When it finally clicked, it was really obvious. There's very clear clues in the character names that it is actually Anastasia. Obviously, as it's a retelling, it may fall into the trap of predictability, but because there's a sci-fi setting and it's so different to the original, it doesn't at all. There's a real big surprises throughout, and there's a really big surprise ending which I really wasn't expecting, which really made me want to read the next book. The pacing is really fast, it's on the go, there's always action happening, it's really great. Although I did dislike how there's 4 different point of views, as this isn't a particularly long book, and I felt that maybe shortening that by a couple may have made it a little bit more in depth for each character, and we could have gotten to know them a little bit more. Although this does make up for the fact that if one character doesn't have a lot to do, the other characters may be in the middle of an action-packed scene, which does keep the book going a lot longer. I did also feel that the world building was lacking for a sci-fi book. Obviously, if you're going to be stuck in a ship all the time, there's not a lot you can do for the actual surrounding area world building. But I did think that some of the backstories and the phrases that were used and the different people there wasn't really touched upon. So I think we have the Solani people, which Jax is a part of. They can see the fates of people by touching them. This isn't really talked about a lot. We don't know why this is happening, where they're from, why they don't exist anymore. Jax seems to be the only one. It's very odd and it was a little bit jumbled. I do hope that in the next installment things like that are touched upon and it's not just left open-ended for the reader. There were some parts where it did excel with descriptions, so there's the moonflowers, which I think they're called. This scene was really beautiful as they all opened up and they shone, and it was a really great description. And then other times you're just kind of wandering around buildings that you don't really know what they look like or what they're made of. And it just felt very hit and miss with the actual descriptions of areas of the world. I also got this in the fact that the Ironbloods live in gardens above the actual world. It's not really explained why or how this happened or why they're separated from the common folk. And I'm unsure as to how they're floating, so when I'm imagining it in my head, it's not quite... I have no idea how to think about it when I'm reading about flying to the gardens. This is another book that I really disliked the romance. It had 2 points. It had 2 main romances which I didn't like because one of them had the same reason I didn't like Honor of Thieves, and the other one had the same reason I didn't like Queen's Rising. I really didn't like the main relationship because D09, the robot, had known Anna since she was a child. This is really similar to the Queen's Rising. And that even though Anna has fell in love with him, he technically doesn't have emotions, but he does have a lot more power over Anna as he is a robot. He is more advanced than her. He's a lot older than her. And there's just little things, that imbalance of power just doesn't sit well with me. The other relationships was between Jax and Rob, and it is a gay relationship which is really great, but there was no build up to it at all. There was instant love. As soon as they saw each other, they had a connection. Once they touched, it was special. It was just really, really fast, and within 2 days they were going out of their way to put each other in death's way to save one another, which just wouldn't happen in the real world, okay? And we should really stop having non-built up romances because it's not realistic, and for young adult books it's not good for teens to be reading things like that. The book as a whole is highly inclusive. See, it's got the gay couple, it's got a lesbian couple for the secondary characters, it's got people of colour, and it's also got some disability in there as well. All of these have been completely normalised in this world. Nothing is talked about within the characters. No one is saying anything rude to any of them because of these reasons. It's really great that this is just completely okay in this world. Even though the main characters were all very differentiated from one another, the secondary characters were not. They were basically there to die to push the story forward, and a lot of them were there to make Anna feel guilty, and a lot of them were there to make it a shock that, oh, we're killing someone off, it's an actual consequence. By the end of the book I wasn't feeling this at all. I found it boring. I found that the people who were dying, I didn't even know anything about them. They weren't written with enough depth for me to be emotional about it. And during these scenes of mourning, I wasn't connected to the character. I didn't feel emotional towards them, and so I couldn't feel for the main characters when they were grieving at all. This just meant that I was wanting to skip over these parts to get to the next action-packed moment, which would be a few pages later. But overall I really liked this book. I did, even with the problems it had. It's got to the point now where bad romance just doesn't affect my score for a book, because most books have romance that is problematic now. It's a book you can read if you just want to enjoy a book. You don't have to think about everything too much. The plotline itself is completely compelling. Of course it is a retelling, but it's out there, it's different, and it's changing the things up a bit, which is really interesting, and I really want to see what's going to happen in the next book. Thanks guys for watching. I hope to see you again soon.